All righty. So continuing with our discussion of the judicial branch. Guys, when we get to the Supreme Court and we talk about court cases throughout American history that set precedents for how our laws are interpreted, how our Constitution is interpreted, okay? Civil liberties becomes a very important part of that, and understanding what your rights are is important as a U.S. citizen, okay? If you learn what your rights are, you will be among the minority of Americans that know what their rights are, okay? Just let me give you an example. The whole dust stuff with Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling at NFL football games during the national anthem, okay? Everybody, I think, knows they have a right to protest. They have a right to kneel, okay? However, your employer also has certain expectations of how you behave in the workplace. Okay, so if I were to hold a protest in my classroom as a teacher, or any teacher to hold a protest in their classroom, it may not be what the school wants you to do, your boss wants you to do. Okay, so the boss does have a right to expect certain behavior out of you. Okay, so the NFL owners of their teams could say to them, hey, you're not doing that anymore. And they would be within their rights to tell their employees not to behave that way while they're at work. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So knowing what your rights are and what they aren't would basically be referring to civil liberties, protection of the people from arbitrary acts of government. Guys, this is the whole reason for the Constitution. Okay? It's not to have the government take care of you. It's to protect you from government so that they don't take away your natural rights. Okay? First Amendment. Freedom of religion is bracketed by two clauses. The Establishment Clause on one side and the Free Exercise on the other. So the Establishment Clause is where we get this notion of separation of church and state. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. Now, guys, that's pretty broad, right? So how do we interpret that? I mean, we still have, in God we trust on our money. Every session of Congress still opens with a prayer. They have a chaplain that is paid for with tax dollars money. Taxpayers' money, excuse me. Okay. So what does that mean? Is this wall of separation between church and state? What kind of wall is that? How big is it? How obstructionist is it? Okay. And just to review, guys, if you don't remember, this term separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. This is what the Constitution says. No law respecting the establishment of religion. Basically, they're saying that you cannot have an official religion of the United States. You cannot have a litmus test to say you must be this religion to hold political office. Okay? It doesn't say that people of religious beliefs can't serve in government and that their religious beliefs can't affect how they legislate or govern. It says nothing to that effect. Okay, and I think I've told you before that this term comes from Thomas Jefferson in a letter to the Danbury Baptist Association that said to the Baptist Association, don't worry, there's a wall of separation between the church and the state. The state can't control your religion. It doesn't say that religious people can't control government. Okay? So, there are some very important court cases on this that you can look at too as precedents. Okay? The free exercise. You can't stop people from practicing their religion, whether it's black magic, voodoo, Catholicism, Protestantism, Presbyterianism, and so forth. Okay? You can't stop people unless it does this. Yeah?
Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you would know, but you know how sometimes on forums they have you mark your religion? Is there like a box for Satanism? You just check out.
I've never seen one.
Maybe that's
Other.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious if they would ever put that down in the form. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they could.
I mean, if you wanted to, yeah, click other and then fill it in. I imagine you could. I don't know if that's going to help you get a job. All right, less than harm someone, breaks the law, or is obscene. Okay, we'll get into obscenity here in a minute, but harm is the key term here. Okay, so basically, adults can do whatever they want as far as religion is concerned. They have the right to be stupid. You have the right to hurt yourself. Okay, but you don't have the right to hurt children. Okay, so as far as indoctrinating children into something that could harm them, I think I've probably mentioned this, the Pentecostals and some of them practicing with, poisonous snakes and that sort of thing. It's not something you would let a child do, and you can see the government stepping in there. Okay?
What do those people do with poisonous snakes?
They just handle them during their services.
Why?
It's a faith thing, Like I have faith that I can, God will protect me. I assume that's kind of what the message is.
Very interesting.
It is.
Does that go wrong?
So like human sacrifice, that's not going to happen. That's not really protected. But that has been practiced in many religions throughout history, right? We're just not going to allow that to happen. Okay, so we'll get into obscenity here in a minute. Okay, so, let's talk about it now. Black mass. Okay, this sort of thing. It may be obscene to you, may be offensive to you, but it doesn't harm you. You know what I mean? So people are allowed to do it. Okay, again, involving children in that may be questionable. Okay, if you believe that, I don't know if the government can do this because, you believe in like demons and possession and so forth. If doing a black mass would allow for, demon possession into children, can the government step in? I don't know if they can do that. Now, for black mass, sometimes they'll steal the Eucharist, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's against the law. Stealing is against the law. Okay, so, all right, freedom of assembly. This is part of the First Amendment as well. You have to stay on public property. Going back to tillers, going back to any type of protest at an abortion clinic, you can't get on their private property. You have to stay on public property, and you can't cause a riot. Okay, you're not allowed to cause a riot. All right, now let's talk about speech. And this is one, gosh, it's so big right now. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think right now our freedom of speech is more threatened than it has been since I've been alive. There's really an attack on this freedom, okay? Now, some of these there are some restrictions, and any of you have studied or taken journalism, you would know what libel is, okay? Where you're printing false or malicious words, or slander such as spoken words. Yes, you can be sued for libel and slander, and this would be in a civil case where you're probably going to pay monetary damages. Okay, so I can tell you this: if you're a celebrity, you don't have the same protections as somebody like me or you. Somebody that makes money off of their name, okay, they don't have the same protections. So, like, if you ever look at, like, the National Enquirer or these tabloid magazines when you're going through the checkout line, like Angelina Jolie impregnated by an alien, this sort of stuff. those celebrities have sued many times for libel or slander. They usually don't win those cases, okay, because they're using their name to make money, and the court generally doesn't give them the protections, okay. Some lawsuits have been successful, but a lot of them are not. Speech cannot cause a riot, so that's your proverbial, hey, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater type of thing, which causes a large commotion where people might get trampled and hurt, okay? And then obscenity. And this is really hard to define for the Supreme Court. So if you look back at different cases, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Justice of the Supreme Court, said, I don't know obscenity, but I'll know it when I see it. See, guys, what's obscene to somebody in Wichita, Kansas, might not be obscene to somebody in San Francisco, California. There's different standards. Okay, so what they basically have come up with is the average person applying local community standards. If they find it obscene, then it may be obscene, okay? And there's no serious artistic or scientific value.
What does obscene even mean in this context? Is it just completely subjective?
It really is, and that's why it's so hard to define. So when you talk about artistic value, you've all heard this before, art is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you an example, and some of you may have heard of this. The New York City Metropolitan Museum of Art did an exhibit, and this is probably now 15 years ago. But the museum gets public funding. From the government helps fund the museum. Well, they allowed a display that was rather offensive to Christians, where they allowed for a crucifix to be on display in a bedpan, crucifix floating in a bedpan full of urine. A picture of the Madonna surrounded by cow poop. Okay? And people were really upset about that. And so to some that would be art, to others it would be obscene or offensive. Okay? The key here is taxpayer dollars going to fund this museum that is allowing these types of displays. I think the taxpayers might have a say here in saying, hey, why are we allowing this offensive material, this display? And I think people have an honest gripe there. And so it would be up to the people that decide who gets the funding, whether they should continue to fund that sort of thing. I mean, take the statue of David, which is one of the most famous sculptures in the world and in world history, is a nude, right? And so some people might find that offensive. Some people might find it beautiful, historic, and so forth. And for sure, most people are like okay with it. All right? But some people are offended. So if it does have artistic or scientific value, then it is protected by free speech, by the First Amendment. Okay? Now, this term prior restraint. Okay, so you're worried that somebody's going to say something that's going to cause a riot. Okay? You can't stop them from saying it. Okay? Just because you think they're going to. You have to let people be free to break the law. And then they have to accept the punishment for breaking the law. Okay? So you can't stop somebody. Now, as far as what we're seeing on college campuses, guys, most college campuses are public. Okay, we do have a lot of private universities. Okay, so on public square, free speech is to be protected. I mean, if you go back to the 1960s, okay, and you see all the protests over the Vietnam War, okay, good. Okay, people are upset, they're protesting. So they're allowed to do so on college campuses. All right, the same people that were doing that protesting back in the 60s are the professors that are now staffing these universities. And so now, all of a sudden, free speech to them, because they don't like what they're hearing from usually conservatives, they want to stamp it out. Okay, which is the epitome of hypocrisy. Okay, the fake, when you were a child, when you were a student, you protested and you voiced your free speech, but you don't want other people to do it now because you disagree with them. Guys, stand up for free speech, please. On college, when you go to college, okay, stand up for the other side to be able to speak their mind, even though you may disagree with it. Please, okay. Tell your classmates, the people you go to college with, explain to them the importance of the First Amendment, that we're not free unless we're allowed to speak freely, and that feelings are not protected by the Constitution. Okay? Because it's scary for them to try and start taking that away, and we're seeing it in places like England and Germany and France, where they're taking away people's free speech. Okay? Don't let that happen in this country, guys. Please. I mean, you guys are, I'll do my part right here to try and explain it to you. But you have to do your part when you go off to school. Okay? Especially stand up for that person that disagrees with you. Please. Yes?
How much do you think this is going to be affected with the whole idea of hate crimes or hate speech?
Yeah, well, it's hate speech is what they're going after. You know what I mean? So but the problem is, who determines what that is? Okay, so like on Facebook and Twitter, look, those are private companies. If Mark Zuckerberg wants to stifle conservative speech, then he has the right to do so because he owns a company. He owns the freaking company. He can do whatever the heck he wants. Okay? And conservatives have the right not to use Facebook. I like Facebook because I can keep track of my family and stuff back in Ohio and former students and so forth. So I'm still on it, but I've thought about, this, they don't like me and what I believe, but I'm still using their platform. It's okay. Mark Zuckerberg is not a public institution. College campuses are. Okay? I forgot. What was your question?
How this might be.
Yeah, hate speech. Yeah. And that's where it's happening. Canada. Guys, just north of us. Okay? They find people that you can lose your job, put in jail, so forth. Now, people lose their jobs in media for saying the wrong thing. You know what I mean? I don't know you guys who Laura Ingraham is. Did any of you guys read one of her books, Laura Ingraham? She's a talk show, radio talk show, AM conservative, and she also has a show on Fox. Well, she came out and criticized David Hogg. You guys know David Hogg?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Come on.
The Parkland guy.
Yeah, he's the one of the survivors of the Parkland, the anti-gun guy. And he was complaining about how he wasn't getting accepted into some of these colleges and so forth. And she said something about, well, why would they want you on their college campus? How dare you attack an 18-year-old? That's just, she did not lose her job. He tried. Now, what happened is he tried to get boycotts of her advertisers. Okay, but Fox actually stood behind her. If you're an 18-year-old and you're going to go out and do this and hit the media circuit and criticize people for their beliefs in the Second Amendment, you should fully be expected for people to respond to that. Okay, and she did, and she came under so much pressure. Oh, come on! You think this kid can't handle that? Huh? Kylie, Kaylee, can you handle it if you disagree with me and I come back at you and disagree with you?
No.
Yes, you can.
No.
Yes.
I will cry.
Do you have an example of like a recent thing that was deemed a hate crime?
In
Like
a hate speech?
Yeah.
In the United States, no. Not to this point.
Like there's never been a.
Not yet, that I'm aware of.
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Well, people cry hate speech for a lot of things.
Yes.
It's never actually deemed hate
Right.
speech. But what
So-
would that even mean?
But so what it means is that people want members of state legislatures and Congress to pass laws, okay, that will punish hate speech. Okay? So what I'm saying is there's a move to try and create these laws, like they have in Canada. Okay? And one of the big ones in Canada, somebody asked for an example, is criticizing Islam. Okay? So if you're criticizing Islam, then publicly, then that can be seen as a crime in Canada. Hate speech. Yeah.
There's a recent example in the UK.
Yeah.
There's this comedian guy, whatever you.
With the dog.
Get the dog.
That got him to do the Hitler salute.
After 2 years, he was punished, but it wasn't jail time. It was 800 pounds.
Okay. So he got fined.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's fighting back because
So many people were backing him though because it was absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
It's such a waste of
I
his
agree.
time.
But this is where you get into that hypersensitive situation where people are on our college campuses. Okay? It's pathetic. Okay? And I'm glad people stood up for the guy that had his dog that learned how to do a Nazi salute. It's kind of stupid. Okay? It is stupid. Okay? But people have the right to be stupid. Okay. Due process. Now we've studied these amendments, guys. Okay?
Right?
Yeah.
Our notes ended with prior restraint.
Yeah.
Okay, and it goes. Okay, so you need to write these down. It's just 4 lines. Sorry, I'm making you take 4 lines of notes.
What is this?
And then it goes to the book. There's the 9 steps to a trial in the book. Okay. Apologize, I ran out of room. I didn't want to kill more trees.
Kill them, maybe trees. Trees grow back.
Not if you cut the trees.
Environment is a
Popcorn and Diet Coke, part of a breakfast.
Coke Zero.
Oh.
That's not worse. It's not any better.
There's no aspartame in it.
So what do they use? Some chemical?
Sucralose, probably. So bad.
I believe we drink we use that because of
Wait a second.
Could be saccharine.
Maybe there is some aspartame in it.
aspartame
Yeah.
is so bad for you.
Right.
By the way.
Caramel
Drink
color,
Diet Pepsi.
phosphoric acid,
Diet Pepsi
aspartame,
doesn't have
potassium.
aspartame.
It's got some potassium benzate in it.
Sucralose.
Natural flavors, potassium citrate.
Well, like if you're gonna have talk, don't you want
I can't pronounce that.
If you can't pronounce it, then don't drink it.
And caffeine. I don't drink a lot of that. Okay, it was free. I like to have it for my ball game. Huh? Okay.
This girl drank 2 energy drinks before a basketball game, and then went into a coma in the middle of it. Like she literally fell to the ground,
Yeah.
and now she can't
We
talk.
get
or
2
walk.
energy drinks before working out.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, like in
Oh, stop
my
your
gym.
water.
No. Yeah.
There needs to be some PSA for kids about energy drinks because they
They're
don't
about to make it illegal that you can't buy them
I'm
until
totally
you're
aware that
18.
it's poison when I drink it. It doesn't stop me.
All right, so due process. Government must act fairly and in accord with established rules. The established rules are the process, and they have to act within those fairly. Okay, I've mentioned this the other day. Procedural due process versus substantive due process. Procedural is following the right steps, okay? So, your first contact with a law enforcement officer, okay? They have to identify themselves, right? And then if they're going to put you in custody or question you possibly or take you downtown, they're going to have to read you your Miranda rights, okay? Now, I don't know if you guys have seen any of those videos on YouTube or Facebook about people that know all their rights when it comes to a interaction with a police officer, okay? So if a police officer stops you on the street and asks you for ID, does he have a right to do that? You need to, the cop has to tell you why they want to see your ID. And even if so, if he doesn't have a valid reason, you have to show him the ID. Okay, so there's so many little things within the law, and that all comes from court cases throughout the years, the precedents that have been set by different interactions that people have gone through. Okay. Generally, if you're not doing anything wrong and the cops want to see an ID, I guess it's probably not a bad idea just to cooperate and get that over so you can move on. But some people feel like, hey, we're turning into a police state, and I want to show the cops that they don't have the right to just stop random people and ask them for ID. It's not within their power. This isn't a police state. This is a free country. Okay, so if you're one of those people and you feel really strongly about it, then find out exactly what your rights are, and when it comes to interaction with a police officer. Substantive due process deals with the substance of the law. Is the law constitutional? Okay, so this is where we get into the whole thing where we look at courts and we say one is a trier of fact, one is a trier of law. Right? Trial courts are triers of fact to find out whether somebody was guilty or innocent. Somebody was in the wrong, somebody was in the right. Substantive due process is the law that they pass constitutional. If the law you're being charged with violating is actually allowed to be a law. So like a good one would be a hate crime or a hate speech penalty, you know? So if you got a hate speech penalty, you say, whoa, 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 you can't fine me for that because I have the First Amendment right to say what I want. As long as I don't cause a riot, right? What else? Obscenity? What? Or hurt somebody. Now, how do you hurt somebody with words? Well, you can hurt their feelings, but those aren't protected, right?
Could cause them financial loss.
Slander, libel. Yes.
Okay, couldn't like on Law and Order, I watch a lot of Law and Order.
Yeah, yeah.
So like when
So do I.
Okay, so like when there's this lady, like she said something about a teenager or whatever, and then she killed herself. So and she was charged with like whatever hate speech or whatever. Is that like an instance that could happen?
That would be like more of a bullying type thing than hate speech. So like there are laws, cyber laws that they've started putting on the books. And so in the show you watched, they found that person guilty?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that judge is making a leap there that what the person said online caused this person to kill themselves. So that in a jury, you would have to be able to prove that happened, and obviously the jury in this case bought that. So yeah, I mean we're starting to see more laws on the books there. Now, can those laws be challenged constitutionally? I think they can. Whether the court would say this was free speech and protected, and you can't convict somebody of that, I don't know if the Supreme Court would agree with that or not. I think it's pretty smart not to go after other people online, for personal things. I mean, if you disagree, if you're in a political discussion, that's different than going after their looks or maybe something they did at a party, something like that. I would just steer clear of that. You know what I'm saying? You know, let's not be mean. Okay. 14th Amendment applies the rights and due process to the states. Okay, just coming back to that one more time. The 14th Amendment. Yes?
Along the lines of like hate speech and all that jazz, verbal harassment,
Mm-hmm.
what constitutes that, and is that as subjective as hate speech?
I guess it would come in context with me to everything is verbal harassment. Okay, so would that be, are you speaking in a situation like in a workplace, walking down the street, and somebody whistles at you?
Sure. Whichever one you want to.
Well, no, at the workplace there's going to be protections against things like sexual harassment. Okay, but if you're at a bar and some guy's hitting on you, okay, and you're like, dude, leave me alone, and he keeps bugging you, you're in a public place, okay, you have a choice. I mean, you could leave, you could call the cops and say, this guy's verbally harassing me, and the cops could show up and say, hey, just leave it alone. But I don't know if they've broken the law. You know what I mean?
And what about like cases of stalkers where they just won't stop?
Yeah, so you can get restraining orders on people and so forth. That will protect you from people that you feel are, you know, potentially could harm you because of their attraction to you or something like that. Yeah.
How do you know if like that gets broken?
Like a restraining order?
Yeah.
Well, you would call the police if you saw that person, like within, I don't know, 500 yards of you or something like that. Yeah. They showed up the same event. Yeah, just call the police. Hey guys, the 14th Amendment takes the Bill of Rights, which were passed in the U.S. Constitution, and it takes them and incorporates them into the states. So prior to the 14th Amendment, all of these Bill of Rights that we talk about, these freedoms that we talked about, were not incorporated. They were only protections against the federal government, not against your state government. So the 14th Amendment really allows for due process and your rights to be applied within the state. So Mississippi can't take away your Bill of Rights. Okay? Do you guys understand that? Incorporation? Alright. What time we get out here? 45? Okay, let's get on this. Okay? 9 steps to a trot. Okay? On the test, you're going to have to list these. I'm not going to make you write an essay. You have to list them. So you got 2 listing things on the test. Supreme Court justices, 9. 9 steps to a trot.
The Chief Justices, that's me.
Okay. All right, so 9 steps to a trot. Oh, wow, we're out of Kleenex again. I have 1 box left.
I'll bring you an extra one
For extra credit.
This will get us through.
Where's the shot? Well,
Everybody in my house has a cough except for me.
so it's like the 9, the A, B, C, D. That I have to list.
What's
Or
A?
you just want one for
Arrest.
Yep.
And then B is grand jury and C.
Yep.
Okay. I won't go down the line.
Okay, so starting with an arrest. Okay, without a warrant, police must have sufficient facts to convince a reasonable man that a crime is committed, has been committed, is being committed in order to make an arrest or a search. Okay, so police have this thing called probable cause. Okay, so just an easy example is you get pulled over for not using a turn signal, and the cop approaches the car. You roll down the window and pot smoke billows from the vehicle. There's probable cause that a crime is being committed here. A couple, actually. Okay? So, he doesn't need a warrant to search the vehicle. Okay? Now, cop approaches the car, you get pulled over for not using a turn signal, and the driver of the vehicle looks nervous. Is that probable cause to search the vehicle? Okay. I get nervous every time I get pulled over. You know what I mean?
Wait, before we graduate, you have to teach us how to get out of the ticket.
Yeah.
We've done this?
You also have to teach us why Texas is so big.
Oh, maybe I'll
Yeah, definitely did not help. I would have remembered this.
All right, we got a few minutes.
Definitely don't cry.
Yeah, you do, because I cried when I was
That helps you? Crying helps?
Mine didn't.
Yeah, it hasn't helped my wife in the past.
Even like
Yeah.
sure, not
With
know.
like
I
her.
didn't know I was being pulled over. I was at a stoplight. Knocked on my window and I didn't even realize I was being pulled over.
Oh, wow.
And then I started crying and he was like, "You're stupid." So I mean, you're talking about I didn't have my lights on, but like it was light enough outside that I could see. Oh yeah, like 30 minutes before and after.
Okay.
But are you telling us something?
Yeah, hey, so I don't advocate, first off, I don't advocate speeding or breaking any traffic laws, okay, or driving laws, or whatever you want to call it. Okay?
What laws do you support?
Can't really think of anything. All right, so anyhow, I do tend to have a little bit of a lead foot. Always have. My wife does as well. We both drive fast. My feeling is that if you're going faster than everybody else, then you only have to worry about what's in front of you, not behind you.
Makes sense.
That's a fact.
You would do
You are
well in
wrong.
California. They
I'm
set
a
their own speed
professional.
limit.
Yeah, you go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
All right, so hey, guys, if you do get pulled over, first off, guys, listen to me. If you get pulled over on Central, the lights come on. Do not stop your car on Central. If you stop on Central, you're putting that cop in danger because there's cars driving 40, 50 miles an hour right by that police officer when you get pulled over, which is putting him in danger and making him or her uptight. Okay? The thing you have to do is put the police officer at ease. Nobody wants to go up to a car window not knowing what's going on inside of that vehicle. That's scary. I don't want that job. And that's one of the reasons why I really respect police officers and what they do, because I don't want to do that. So, as a driver of a vehicle, I want to make sure that the police officer is at ease. Okay? So, first thing you do, if you're on Central, the lights come on, put your turn signal on. Okay? So he knows that you're going to turn. Okay? So the next side street you turn, or parking lot you turn into. Okay? And then you stop. Put your car in park, turn the vehicle off, we'll roll down your window, turn the vehicle off. Okay? That way, if you have the car off, he knows you're not going to run. You know what I mean? Now, if you're on the highway, which is usually where I get pulled over, okay, there's a shoulder, right? Get your two right tires off the shoulder. Give that police officer a wide breath, because I don't know if you guys have ever stopped on a highway before and a semi comes going by at 75 miles an hour. That's not a pleasant experience. I don't like that. That's scary to me. So get your wheels off the side of the shoulder so that that cop has, 8-10 feet before the road. Boy, you're putting that guy in, that's a lot more comfortable situation, yes? Okay? Car off, window down. Get your driver's and your insurance card out immediately when you get pulled over. Okay? Then you put your hands on the wheel with your ID and your insurance card. When a cop approaches a vehicle, they don't know what's going on down here with your hands. They don't know if you're reaching for a weapon. They don't know what's going on. So if they approach the vehicle and your hands are on the steering wheel, first of all, you've put them in a comfortable situation to walk up to your vehicle. Now they see your hands. You're doing them a favor. You're making their job easier. Yes? And cops appreciate that. Okay, so your hands are on the steering wheel, you got your stuff. Officer approaches the window, says, "Good evening." It's "Good evening, officer." Not "Ossifer," right?
No, good evening.
Right.
Pull me
Officer,
over.
good evening. Hey, be polite. Be polite. Do you know why I pulled you over? Okay, now here's where the acting comes.
You've got 3 minutes.
Was I speeding?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Apologize. Okay? Look, oh man, I wasn't paying attention. I had this song on, it was just going, or I use my kids a lot, you know. I was just dropping my daughter off, and I was running my kid. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. And guys, from there, the cop has either made up their mind. I'm giving a ticket or not. But you've done everything you can to make that cop comfortable and safe, okay? And he may reward you with that, with a warning, okay? I've gotten out of more tickets than I've gotten tickets. I'm not kidding, okay?
How often do you speed?
Well, I've been pretty good lately as far as getting pulled over. It's been a while since last time I got pulled over was up in freaking Kansas City, Olathe. I'm coming home on a Sunday morning. On a Sunday morning. It's a construction zone. It's a motorcycle cop. The speed limit's normally 65. It's construction 55, and I'm doing 75.
You didn't get out of that one.
There's no traffic. There's no construction workers. I did not get out of that ticket.
Cops on
Yes.
Can it also be that you're not supposed to, like, you just put your hands on the wheel and just sit there and not, and then when they come up, be like, okay, I'm reaching for my driver's license, and then do it.
If it's my wallet's right there, I can get that out quick. I know exactly where my stuff is. Because it's going to take the cop a while. He's going to look at your plate and probably let everybody know he's making a stop. If you can do that before, yeah, that way it's all good, and you don't have to reach for anything. It's right there. Boom. It's making his time go faster. Everything's ready.
Just on this road because you're going to hit your 60 and 55.
I don't know if
Like, you're going 60. I'm like, I don't think you're going.
Oh, sorry.